Hi, tonight's bedtime story is called Jacob's Promise, a story about faith. Long ago and far away, a flock of sheep and goats lived in the desert. Some of the sheep and goats were striped, some were spotted, some were brown, but most were white with soft, fuzzy coats. They played in the sand under the palm trees all day. They were the happiest animals in the desert. The sheep and the goats had a very special shepherd. His name was Jacob. Jacob watched over them with tender love and care. The sheep and goats were happy, but Jacob was sad. Jacob was a long way from home. He had come to the desert to live with his uncle Laban. Jacob took care of the sheep and goats, but their owner was Uncle Laban. Over the years, the flocks had grown and Uncle Laban had become very rich. After all his hard work, Jacob still did not own even one little animal. How would he ever be able to go home without a flock of his own? The animals knew that Jacob wanted to go back home. "I don't get it," said one sheep. "Jacob has a nice life here. We all love him." Another sheep said, "If the place he lived before was so great, why did he leave? Why does he want to go back?" "He wants to go home because God promised him the land," said a wise old goat. "He misses his home, and when he remembers God's promise to him, he is filled with a longing to go back." "Promise? What's a promise?" asked a little lamb. "A promise from God," the mama sheep said, "is when God says he's going to give you something or do something for you." Jacob is holding on to the promise that came straight from God. "What does it mean to hold on to a promise?" a soft little lamb asked. "Can you see a promise? How do you hold on to one?" A mama sheep said, "It is like Jacob holding on to one of us when he carries us home sometimes. To hold on to a promise means to believe the promise in your heart and never let go of it, no matter what happens." One of the little lambs asked, "Is Jacob going back with animals? Does that mean we're going too?" "Yes," said a papa sheep. "That's what it means." "What a trip that would be," said the little lamb. "I can just see it all now." "How is that going to happen?" said an old goat. "Greedy old Laban owns us. Jacob just takes care of us, and he's been tricked by Laban 2 times already." "We will have to see what God does," says a fuzzy mama sheep. "It takes faith to hold on to a promise, and Jacob has faith. Jacob looks to God and what he can do. That is what faith is. Jacob believes it will happen, and Jacob knows God will give him a plan." Not long after that, the sheep heard Jacob talking to Uncle Laban. "I have worked for you for a long time, and now I want to take my family and go back to my homeland," said Jacob. "But I don't want you to leave. Stay here and I will pay you whatever you want," Uncle Laban said. Jacob said, "No, I must go. I have worked hard and your flocks have grown while I have been here. You can pay me by letting me take all of the striped and spotted and brown animals as my wages. From now on, every animal that is born striped, spotted, or brown will be mine. That way, you will know that I haven't cheated you or stolen from you." Uncle Laban agreed. What do you think is going to happen? The animals all gathered together to discuss what they had just heard. "There aren't very many of us striped, spotted, or brown sheep or goats," one of the animals said. "Uncle Laban is trying to trick Jacob again," said another sheep. "He's always playing tricks on Jacob. Laban knows there won't ever be very many striped, spotted, and brown sheep. He thinks Jacob will never have enough sheep and goats to have his own flock." "You're right," said a mama sheep, "but God has given Jacob a promise and a plan." Yes, God has given Jacob a plan, said a very wise mama sheep. Jacob just sent most of the striped, spotted, and brown sheep and goats on a 3-day journey. They went to a place far away from the rest of Laban's flock. There in that faraway place, Jacob listened to God's plan and obeyed everything God told him to do. First, he gathered some sticks. Then he peeled away part of the bark and made stripes and spots on the sticks. Then he put the sticks in front of the water trough where the sheep and the goats came to drink. "Why is Jacob putting those sticks with stripes and spots in front of our water trough?" one of the lambs asked. The mama said, "Those sticks remind Jacob of God's promise. They help him believe what God told him and his grandfather Abraham." "What did God promise Abraham?" a little goat asked. "God told Abraham that he would have lots and lots of children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren." "How many?" asked the little goat. "As many as the stars in the sky and the grains of sand in the desert," said a wise old mama goat. "Wow," said the little goat. "That's a lot." Time passed. Every day when a healthy, strong sheep and goat came to drink, Jacob put the sticks in front of the watering trough. The sheep began to fall in love and have baby goats, and the goats also began to fall in love and have the sheep began to fall in love and have baby sheep. The goats also began to fall in love and have baby goats. In the spring, an amazing thing happened. There were lots and lots of healthy baby lambs and goats that had stripes, spots, and brown fuzzy coats. "Look at all the striped, spotted, and brown sheep and goats," said a little baby sheep. "There are lots of them now." "Yes," said a papa sheep, "God's promise to Jacob has come true." Jacob held on to God's promise, and God made it happen. "Oh," said a baby sheep, jumping up and down, "I get it. Knowing and believing God's promises is very important. That means it won't be long before Jacob leaves to go home. God's plan has really happened fast." Jacob had faith in God's promise, and look at what God did. There are so many striped, spotted, and brown sheep and goats. "Look," said one of the mama sheep, "everybody is lining up with Jacob. They're getting ready to go to his homeland." It says, "Start here, leaving for Jacob's homeland." Jacob knew in his heart that what God had promised, God had done. Jacob had gone to Uncle Laban as just one man with nothing. He returned to his homeland with 12 children and more animals and money and helpers than he could count in a day. God had made Jacob a wealthy man. When Jacob arrived, his brother Esau said, "Welcome home." The end. That was Jacob's promise. All right, good night.